G'day and welcome back to Critical AFL on YouTube for West Coast's defeat to Melbourne at Optus Stadium this evening in what was probably the most frustrating game for me, at least so far this year. Tonight we'll be covering best players for West Coast, key takeaways from the match, and then my assessment on where the club needs to go to find the improvement that we need to start winning games this year. But first, as always, I would like to make my humble request to anybody watching this video who isn't a subscriber to please consider hitting that subscribe button and keeping yourself dialed in for weekly reviews on this channel, not just of the AFL performances, but the waffle as well, including my selection predictions each week based on who's pushing their case from the twos. The current goal for this channel is to reach 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, just because YouTube doesn't allow monetization of any videos until after this milestone is reached. And as I like to say, until that happens, producing these videos in a timely fashion is a very time-intensive passion of mine. So if you've been enjoying the content or just found this video for the first time and like the coverage of tonight's game, there's more where that came from. And if you hit subscribe, you'll never miss out on any of it. Now, let's take a look at our best players from tonight's loss. At the top of my list against the Demons, I've got Ruben Ginbey. Ginbey, he's been a consistent high performer for us all year, and I think tonight might have been his best game of his career so far, although I have no doubt that he'll continue to get better. The power and athleticism that he showed in the back line was line-breaking all night, and he racked up 19 possession, but 9 of them were contested, and he was disposing of the footy at 79% efficiency as well. So just in my eyes, Ginbey's become that player who you know the ball's safe with whenever he gets his hands on it, and we don't actually have a heap of guys like that right now. Some of his contested possessions in a packed defensive 50, he managed to get just out of pure strength. And all year now, he's actually shown that with his speed by foot, he's just never in danger of being run down by anyone, which is a really reassuring trait when you're running the ball out of the back line. As a top draftee for us a couple of years ago now, I do still hold out hope that he'll move back into the midfield one day. But right now, he's very close to irreplaceable down back, and I can't see it being a good idea at any time this year, and possibly even longer if we were to try. But he's definitely our top performer, I think, from tonight, just with that reliability down back in a game where I don't have the number of inside 50s off the top of my head, but it was a really bad differential, and he stood up all night. The next best for me tonight was Jake Waterman. He came close to setting us up really early with what could have been a decent lead. He started with a difficult snap that he put straight through the middle, but it brushed his opponent's fingertips on the way through. I think it was after the umpire thought it was a goal. And then just after that was an unfortunate missed set shot in the first quarter as well. From there, though, he really hurt the Demons throughout a lot of the game when we were struggling just to arrest their momentum. And it wasn't just the 3 goals that he finished with, but there was a bunch of contested marks he took just outside 50 that allowed us to break that Melbourne zone behind the ball. And it was purely with the strength of his hands in the marking contest, because they weren't exactly, open spaces and lace out passes. It was really just the sticky hands that he's been known for now for a while. And I know I said similar to this last week against Hawthorn, but when you look at his output versus the opportunities he's given, which is really the space that he's got to work with that I'm talking about, I honestly reckon Jake Waterman is the most valuable key forward in the competition right now. But after Waterman, I've got Liam Baker. Baker had a really dominant first half in particular, which I think had a lot to do with us leading at halftime. For a guy who's only been playing for us just this 1 year, his performances every week well and truly fall into my known quantity basket, meaning I don't think I need to go into great detail about what he's doing well, other than to say he's consistently leading from the front on a weekly basis during a difficult period for the club, which is our rebuild. I think it's really important for the club, especially all the younger players, to see guys like Baker and like Ginbey setting the standard week in, week out as well. I thought Elijah Hewitt had another big impact. This week it was up forward with 3 goals and 15 possessions, which is pretty impressive with the reduced midfield minutes that he was on. Hewitt is absolutely explosive with the ball in his hands. He's becoming a guy who sets up that real line-breaking ball movement that creates open space all over the field whenever he gets his hands on it, and usually ends with someone getting a shot at goals too. I do think we actually needed him in the midfield a little bit more tonight, but to manage 3 goals on the forward line instead says heaps about how talented he is. I'm trying to figure out how many games he's managed to string together without injury this year, because I know he's at the point where really all he needs now is to keep taking his game to another level through consistency. I know he missed a couple of games with a minor issue. I think it was, a quad issue that happened the night before one game, so it cost him the following week as well. So it was like a 2-weeker, but it was really only about 7 days. So it was a minor issue, but in general, it does look like Hewitt is finally building that match fitness, and he does keep getting better each week. So I don't think that was a real setback on the longer timeline. Other than those standouts for me, I think Jack Graham, Jeremy McGovern, and Oscar Allen all played really well. Graham put in another one of my known quantity performances, but he was definitely in our best players. Jeremy McGovern was dominating until he was subbed out, which was a really big blow for us at a point where we were in an arm wrestle to win our first match of the year. Oscar Allen, he looked like a genuine key defender tonight to me. I think the bar's been set just a little bit low the last few weeks while he's struggled with form and, the external pressure, which he's not shied away from admitting. But he played his role really, really well tonight. I'm not sure if McGovern is going to miss next week with an official concussion protocol. I'm not sure that they declared that tonight, but if he is, then I think Oscar Allen's going to be a really important factor back there, being a more reliable and established and experienced key defender for us to put other guys around. Other than that, though, I'll push on to the key takeaways. Firstly, I'm not going to be too harsh on West Coast in this loss. I thought there was a lot of evidence of the playing group getting a good handle on the new playing style. We rebounded aggressively all night, which I know is the style that McWalter's pushing for. And a lot of the time, Melbourne couldn't actually handle that. Unfortunately, it's just very difficult to win games when the hit-outs and clearances are stacked against you as badly as they were. At the same time, I just don't also think it's necessary for that to be a knock on Matt Flynn or our mids even. The truth is, I think Flynn's competed really hard this year, but he just doesn't match up well against the behemoths of the competition. Like Jared Witts is 209 centimetres and an absolute gun ruckman, and Max Gawn tonight is also, you guessed it, 209 centimetres, and he's still the best ruck in the competition. So I guess what I'm getting at is does that mean that we should give up on trying to utilise Flynn's size, weight and strength against these guys instead of Bailey Williams at least, who could use his leap and athleticism to counter their strengths? It's actually probably a better option to go with Williams just for those particular guys, but I don't think losing to those two rucks like Flynn did is actually a reason to drop him for, say, next week. I think next week it's going to be Richmond, which would mean Nankervis, and he relies on his strength and weight a lot more. So I honestly just think it's a case of horses for courses, and on a weekly basis, West Coast does need to consider who will be playing, which of our ruckmen is most suited to them, provided they're in form, which I personally believe at the moment both Flynn and Williams are in form relative to their potential. So, like I said, next week, for instance, it'll be Toby Nankervis. He's 199 centimetres, but is incredibly strong. He has a lot of stamina too. So, even on the back of this week, I'd be picking Flynn for that matchup personally, just to avoid being bullied at stoppages and throw-ins. But anyway, it's just a bit of food for thought about our current ruck situation. I will be putting out, like I mentioned at the start of this video, a full waffle review video later this weekend. But for the sake of this key takeaway, it's worth mentioning here that Bailey Williams played a really decent game in the win against South Fremantle earlier today, and is definitely ready any time that we do choose to pull the trigger on bringing him in. My other key takeaway tonight is that our midfield is really undermanned for established talent, and the only way through that is to keep promoting the young guys through there until we get to the other side. It was the elephant in the room observation that I actually discussed last week. However, this week I'm bringing it up again just because it felt like we backed off the youth solution, and I think we actually paid the price for that. So, like I mentioned earlier, even though he kicked 3 goals up forward, I still would have liked to have seen more midfield minutes put into Elijah Hewitt. And I also thought Clay Hall was due a spot in the side again this weekend that could have made a difference. I think I mentioned in my waffle video last weekend that he was really demanding a spot in the side, and that didn't actually happen. Especially if we could have brought him in for, say, a medium forward or a defender rather than just swapping him for another midfielder, just to create that little bit of extra rotation for our mids with, a big physical young guy like Hall who can play all 4 quarters in the midfield without tiring. Anyway, I don't want to present this discussion as a silver bullet for our midfield weaknesses, because with Elliot Yeo out of the side, there isn't any perfect short-term solution. But I do think that pushing our best young talent in there for as many minutes as we can will help, especially even by the end of this year. Anyway, that's about it for tonight's review. I hope everyone watching has enjoyed tuning in. And like I said, I will try and get my waffle review video out as soon as I can before the end of the weekend. So hopefully if you're subscribed to the channel, you'll catch that one too, as the Waffle Eagles put in an unreal performance upsetting South Fremantle, who are the top of the ladder. And they also got their first win against the top of the ladder. So that video will also have some insights into who's in the mix for selection next week. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you for that next review. And until then,